Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out top 10 classic British sitcoms.
Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 greatest classic British sitcoms.
John Cleese is
Before we
great.
begin, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe for more great content.
Right.
For this list, we've gathered the finest, funniest, most iconic, and most important British sitcoms. As this is a countdown of the classics, to be in contention, the show must have started before the year 2000.
Okay.
For a look at celebrated recent sitcoms, be sure to check out our video counting down the greatest modern shows. And if cult comedy is more your thing, then we've got you covered with another clip as well.
I don't really know my British sitcoms. I know about Blackadder, I think. Almost Fabulous? Is that what it's called? Blackadder, did I say that one? The Vicar of something. The IT Crowd. The Office, of course. I don't think that's a sitcom, though. Fawlty Towers, is that one? Anyway, I'm sure there's a bunch on here I've never heard of. Hit me.
Number 10, Are You Being Served?
I
We
think I
start
have heard of
stacked
this.
with sexual innuendo for a double helping of double entendre. Throughout the 70s and early 80s, Are You Being Served had audiences bent double with its risque wordplay and comic misdirection. Taking place in the clothing section of a fictional department store, each half-hour episode offered an abundance of inside leg gags and not so well-veiled references to Mrs. Slocum's pet cat, which seemed to get itself in all manner of situations. True, the nudge-nudge wink-wink approach is out of sync with today's society, and the social stereotypes have dated, but Are You Being Served remains a favourite among fans and critics. So much so that a one-off reboot aired in 2016.
This is a great premise for a sitcom because you have your recurring cast and then they have customers come in and that instigates all these new scenarios in an episode. Really smart. And also a very highbrow clientele, which is a nice juxtaposition to lowbrow sexual innuendo. Even the title has kind of a double entendre thing going. Right, next.
Number 9, Bottom. You've been drinking
Bottom.
Following on from earlier success with The Young Ones, Bottom is the squalid, anarchic brainchild of Ade Edmondson and Rick Mayall. The pair wrote and starred in the series, which centres around Richie Richard and Eddie Hitler, dysfunctional flatmates living on the dole in West London.
Richie Richard and Ed Hitler. Great names. I love that the guys who are starring in it were also the writers. That doesn't happen very much. Maybe in a single camera show, but not a multi-camera comedy.
Mostly set inside their paltry and dangerously unsanitary city home, show storylines centre on drinking heavily, fighting fiercely, and hatching unconventional plans to try and find someone willing to have sex with them. It's crude, often controversial, and the complete opposite to Clean Cut. Plus, the show's title is the most blatant bum gag going. What more could you want?
I've never seen this, but from what I'm gathering here, it looks almost like an Odd Couple pairing. What was their dynamic? Let me look that up. Unemployed survivors. Both men are immature. Richie is a virgin. He is insecure and clueless on how to talk to women. That's funny. Despite being a penniless slob, he occasionally projects a pompous sort of snobbery in an attempt to impress others and boost his self-esteem. Okay. Eddie, the more popular of the two, enjoys drinking regularly and often secretly steals family heirlooms and cash from Richie. Wow, that sounds funny. That's not what I was expecting. They're both kind of slobby losers, but delusional in their own ways. The show's original working title was Your Bottom, for the humor of people having to say, I saw your bottom on television last night. These guys are great.
Number 8, Steptoe and Son. The earliest aired of today's entries, Steptoe and Son was a frontrunner for sitcom writers. As one of the first shows to cast actors over straight-up comedians, with Wilfred Bramble and Harry H. Corbett starring in title
No
roles,
way.
it saw a generational clash between elderly Albert Steptoe and his middle-aged son, whose social aspirations are wildly out of tune with his father's.
I recognize the older guy from the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night. He played Paul McCartney's grandfather.
Despite ongoing rumours of on-set tensions, Steptoe was watched by 28 million at its peak, with moving storylines which offered up much more than the expected gag reel. In 1964, it was even rescheduled so as to not be broadcast on election night. Prime Minister Howard Wilson feared that the polls would be empty if Steptoe was on.
Something about that reminds me of Sanford and Son. Yeah, I'm sure Sanford and Son was based on Steptoe and Son. now that I'm seeing this. Great idea to employ actors instead of comedians, because if they're good enough actors, they can do it all. Right. Good. Both of the main actors used voices considerably different from their own. Bramble, despite being Irish, spoke with a received pronunciation English accent. Steptoe and Son brought greater social realism. Its characters were not only working class, but demonstrably poor. The earthy language and slang used were in marked contrast to the refined voices heard on most television of the time. So Sanford & Son was not original either.
Number 7, Yes Minister. Of all Britain's institutions, its government perhaps most frequently falls within the comics firing line. Political satire is a staple of UK TV, and Yes Minister gets our vote as the finest parliamentary jaunt on the box. The series follows the rise and occasional falls of the Right Honourable Jim Hacker MP, a hapless incumbent of the fictional Department of Administrative Affairs. Hacker's hopeless attempts to get his policies noticed contribute to what seems to be a floundering career in public office, until a surprising promotion lands him in the big seat for a 2-series sequel. Yes Prime Minister ran from 86 to 88, as Hacker causes havoc from inside number 10.
Sounds like a good idea, like good premise, you know? I could see something like this in America not taking off, especially these days just because we're so politically polarized. The word spin probably entered the political vocabulary since the series.
Number 6, Dad's Army. From the first line of its iconic theme tune to its many classic catchphrases, Dad's Army is etched into British pop culture. Written by Jimmy Perry and David Croft and set in the fictional town of Wallington-on-Sea, the show chronicles the comings and goings of a Home Guard platoon during World War II. A cast of classic characters includes Privates Pike, Godfrey, Walker and Fraser, as well as Sergeant Wilson and Lance Corporal Jones, who all do their best to give the enemy what for under the patriotic but imperfect leadership of Arthur Lowe's Captain Mainwaring. It's war, but not as we would normally know it.
This reminds me of McHale's Navy. The series has influenced British popular culture with its catchphrases and characters being widely known. The Radio Times magazine listed Captain Mainwaring's "You Stupid Boy" among the 25 greatest put-downs on TV. Looks like they made a film? And a film in 2016? There's a stage show? A pilot episode for an American remake called The Rear Guard, adapted for American viewers by Arthur Julian, was produced by ABC. Broadcast in 1976. The pilot was considered a failure, so the original tapes were wiped. Oh, wow. There's a statue. Here's some of the catchphrases. "You stupid boy. Don't panic. Put that light out. They don't like it up 'em. The vicar's not going to like this. Oh, you silly little man. Would you mind awfully just falling in your own time? Don't tell him, Pike. It was all bone and bristle. They've screwed. I'm doomed. Damn the bloody bank." Good idea for a sitcom.
Number 5, Only Fools and Horses. To the southeast London next, and a family business destined for the big time. Or so Del Boy believes it at least. Only Fools sees David Jason's Del pair with little brother Rodney to make a questionable living on the streets of Peckham. The Trotters will try their hand at anything if it seems a money maker, but their independent traders firm has yet to expand from out the back of the beat-up three-wheeler. Not so ably assisted by Grandad and Uncle Albert in later series, their drive never wavers, but success almost never comes their way. Still, millions tuned in on a weekly basis, crossing their fingers that one day it would.
Only Fools and Horses. I have never heard of that. 1981 to 1991, wow. Oh, the grandfather died after the 3rd series? Uncle Albert was introduced, okay. Wait, this is saying there was a 1996 episode, but that said 1991. Had a couple of spin-offs, looks like. There have been several plans to produce an American version. In 2010, Steve Carell, star of the US version of The Office, expressed an interest in making an American version of the series with him to star as Del Boy. In January 2012, US network ABC commissioned a pilot of an Only Fools and Horses remake titled King of Van Nuys. The pilot starred John Leguizamo, Dustin Ibarra, and Christopher Lloyd. This was in what year? 2012? And they got John Leguizamo and Christopher Lloyd to be in it? That seems below them. They're both like film actors. Weird.
Number 4, Father Ted. The links between comedy and the clergy may not be immediately obvious, but some of TV's funniest shows take place in and around the house of God. We might have listed The Vicar of Dibley here, a biblical triumph in its own right, but we've saved our sermon for Father Ted. A predominantly Irish arrangement, it first aired on Channel 4 in 1995, before running for 3 series with a Christmas special to boot. Set on Craggy Island, the fictional place of exile for the 3 not-so-saintly priests, the sublime and ridiculous storylines see the titular Ted deal with daily life in the parish alongside fathers Jack and Dougal. It's the answer to all your sitcom prayers.
Priests trying to be priestly and they can't be priestly? Great idea. Funny. The series is set in a humorously surreal world in which Ted is the only fully rounded normal character among caricatures, according to Graham Lyman. Exaggerated, over-friendly, over-quiet, over-stupid, over-dull. They really only got one thing. They've got one job. Brilliant. Embarrassment plays a role in many storylines in a similar fashion to Fawlty Towers. Great idea.
Number 3, Porridge. As one half of the 2 Ronnies, Ronnie Barker was already a household name when he debuted as Norman Stanley Fletcher, but his stretch inside the HMP Slade remains one of the comic's most memorable roles. Porridge was the result of another initiative, 7 of 1, which saw Barker star in 7 separate sitcom pilots, including an early version of Open All Hours. While finding a funny side to prison life proved difficult at first, writers Dick Clement and Ian LaFrennais soon realised that small victories were key. Essentially, Porridge is Fletcher beating the system over and over again, and audiences loved his anti-establishment ways.
That would be tough to make a sitcom about prison life, but I guess as he's saying, small achievements.
Number 2, Fawlty Towers. With only 12 episodes ever made, Fawlty Towers is the shortest running of today's top 10. But size isn't everything. The hotel-based hilarity was created by John Cleese and Connie Booth, who were married at the time of the first series and both had starring roles.
Really?
Cleese's Basil Fawlty is head hotelier, attempting to run a hospitable residence but consistently blowing his top whenever problems arise. Booth plays Polly, a hotel assistant and voice of reason within the chaos, while Prunella Scale stars as Sybil, Basil's long-suffering wife, and Andrew Sachs is Manuel, a Spanish waiter forever lost in translation. From hotel inspections to hygiene restrictions, Basil's business is a shambles, but it makes for 5-star TV.
I don't know if I could show these clips of it on YouTube, but some pretty funny clips, even now. 75 to 79. In May 1970, the Monty Python comedy group stayed at the now demolished Glen Eagles Hotel while filming on location. John Cleese was fascinated with the behavior of the owner, later describing him as the rudest man I've ever come across in my life. Wonderful. Among such behavior by Sinclair was his criticism of Terry Gilliam's too American table etiquette and tossing Eric Idle's briefcase out of a window in case it contained a bomb. Asked why anyone would want to bomb the hotel, Sinclair replied, "We've had a lot of staff problems." Michael Palin states Sinclair seemed to view us as a colossal inconvenience. What a great moment of inspiration. John Cleese said, "Connie and I wrote that first episode and we sent it to Jimmy Gilbert, whose job it was to assess the quality of the writing, said, and I quote his note to me fairly accurately, 'This is full of cliched situations and stereotypical characters and I cannot see it as being anything other than a disaster. You're going to have to get them out of the hotel, John. You can't do the whole thing in the hotel.' Whereas, of course, it's in the hotel that the whole pressure cooker builds up." Don't question John Cleese's comedic writing. Who was that guy? Jimmy Gilbert? He's probably dead by now.
Number 1, Blackadder. A sitcom spanning almost 500 years of history, Blackadder takes today's crown. From the Middle Ages to Elizabethan England, the Regency period and World War I, not to mention a lengthy series of specials, one-off clips and standalone sketches, no era is safe from Edmund Blackadder and his band of the merriest of men. Rowan Atkinson's anti-hero raised the bar for sitcoms throughout the 80s, consistently bucking the trend with his delightful deadpan delivery. But as with most great comic characters, he has a human side too, and despite all the gags usually at the expense of Baldrick, the finale to Goes Forth remains one of the most moving moments in British TV history. Blackadder, we salute you.
I've heard of Blackadder and I think I've seen clips, but I didn't realize that it occurred throughout different time periods. And I guess there were different characters, 83 to 89. Each series was set in a different historical period, with the 2 protagonists accompanied by different characters. That's a great idea. What freedom as a writer and an actor. That must have been really fun to do, beginning in 1485 and ending in 1917. Great idea. And you can do commentary on the social issues of that historical time. Eager to avoid comparisons to the critically acclaimed Fawlty Towers, they proposed the idea from a historical sitcom. In January 2005, Tony Robinson told blah 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 that Rowan Atkinson was more keen than he has been in the past to do a 5th series set in the 60s, centered on a rock band called the Blackadder 5. It's not too late, Rowan. You can still do it. I want to see this. I mean, Rowan Atkinson. He's so funny. I got introduced to him through Mr. Bean, I think. My dad used to love Mr. Bean. Congrats, Rowan. Give us some more. We want more. Anyway, thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.